So at the beginning, well, why fundamentally,
yes.
Fundamentally, why, and looking back and understanding, is because I was not healed. And because I was so uncomfortable in that space, I didn't know what to do with that relationship and with that and those interactions.
I want to clear this up. Because I don't want it to be missed. You're uncomfortable with what could be perceived as a healthy relationship.
No, I was uncomfortable with a healthy relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah. We won't paint it. We won't glaze it. I was uncomfortable with it.
So it's like what they say with drug addicts and alcoholics. When you spend so much time being drunk or high or under the influence of something, sobriety is what sobriety to you is the common person's chaos.
Yeah.
You're used to functioning in chaos and uproar and some type of crisis.
And
So when it's quiet, that makes you nervous.
And I didn't have any of that for 2 years. And he was very intentional about telling me that he wanted to be with me, that I was the only one that he was with.
Everything that you want for out of a man.
He did what he said he was going to do. He was where he said he was going to be. He was hella consistent. Like, all of those things. His mom and I got along great. Like, we
threw it all away because of a couple of red flags.
But at that time, I could not identify that those were things that just needed to be worked on and talked about. And communication skills weren't there, and understanding, being able to identify that there were things that definitely needed to be addressed, but there wasn't the reason to throw away the whole horse and wagon.
So we forego that opportunity.
And he didn't drink like I drank. He didn't smoke like I smoked. It was just like, it was like almost 2.5 years of like, maybe a little bit over. It was more like 2 years of
stability.
Literally, like you said, it was like sobriety.
Can deal with it. It wasn't chaotic.
Yeah, it wasn't. And it was just like, nope, that's wrong. I gotta go.
If you're used to living in the Terror Dome, and then you wake up one day and there's nothing flying off the walls, that becomes foreign land.
No, I get it, but I think that people need to understand that it's a cycle that, and I really am hesitant in saying this because I don't want to put this on any victim, but we fall back to what we're familiar with, right? And that's troubling to a lot of people that are in that.
And that's why it's so incredibly important to get coaching, to get some type of therapy for yourself, because you have to change your internal dialogue with yourself. You have to do some real serious dissecting and peeling of that onion and get down to the nitty gritty and figure out where this shit actually came from and why you keep making these damn decisions and putting yourself in these situations and not being able to see the forest for the trees.
I want to put a pin in that, but I definitely want to come back to that, so don't let me forget.
Okay.
So we're now in a newfound relationship,
and it's fun and it's great and we drink. And let me make this very clear. My kids were not off with anybody else. This was definitely on after hours times. I worked 3 jobs while I was raising my boys. So I had, that was the other thing. I had very little time, but when I had time, I did go hang out. But yeah.
So you're in this new relationship.
It's great.
Things are great. Chaos is back. We appreciate it.
The chaos didn't show up probably until after we got engaged.
What was the first sign of the chaos showing back up?
We were out. We had been drinking. He had started to show that he drank a lot more than I realized that he drank. And he was not a nice person when he drank. And we were at some family member's house for some type of game night or something. I can't remember. And he kind of shoved me. And I just looked at him, and so I shoved him back. and he actually fell like into the wall, and everybody noticed it, and he got so mad.
You embarrassed him.
Yes. Got so mad, and he shoved me so hard, and my heel actually got caught in between the sidewalk and the grass. But when I got up, my ankle was swollen. I couldn't put pressure on that foot, and
this is in front of everybody.
This is in front of everybody, and one of his cousins came out and grabbed him because like he was literally coming still for me while I was on the ground. They were like, dude, what's wrong with you? Blah, blah, blah. She's on the ground. She can't get up. And then one of his other cousins came and was like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I think I'm okay. And then I got up and I couldn't put any weight on it or anything like that. And they were like, say, man, you need to take her to the hospital or whatever. And he was like, yeah, I'll take her. He didn't take me to the hospital that night.
Of course not.
He took me back to my apartment. Yeah.
Did he at least help you up the stairs?
No.
So
that next morning I get up, my foot is bruised. I know it's broken. So I go to
broken.
Yeah. I mean, it's bruised. Yeah.
She's a nurse. She knows what it looks like.
Yeah. I was like, my foot is broken.
I'm just saying, like, you know.
So I wake him up and I'm like, hey, I think I need to go to the emergency room. He's like, well, you don't have to do that shit by yourself. And I was like, okay. So I took myself to the emergency room, got x-rayed, got a boot, had to, get a cast later on, all that great stuff. And he was just like, well, how'd you do that? I'm sorry. I think we were at the same place at the same time.
We were at the same party, believe it or not.
Right. And he's calling me consistently while I'm at the emergency room. And he's like, hey, we're such and such, because he's trying to have a get-together at my apartment.
While you're at the emergency room.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
So let's go to the escalation. How does it continue to? Because it gets worse.
Oh yeah, it gets worse. Well, the thing is, it waxes and it wanes. So it's kind of like that whole cycle that people, and therapists and things will talk about. It's that big escalation. It's the blow up. Then it's the honeymoon phase. Then it's the tension building stage. Then it's another huge blow up.
So this is key. Mm-hmm. So it's the, what do you call it? The wax.
It kind of waxes and wanes.
And wanes.
Yeah.
So you go to the ER.
Mm-hmm.
Is diagnosed with a broken ankle, foot, whatever. You come back. Is he lovey-dovey?
No.
Is he apologetic? Is he empathetic?
No, he wanted me to take the boot off.
What?
So where's the wane?
So then it is, I'm cooking your favorite foods the next day, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you're really in pain. You're really not faking. Well, I have this big ass boot like on my foot when I came back. He was like, well, you could have gotten that from anywhere. Why would I go? Where on a Sunday would I go buy an orthopedic boot? But okay, you know what I'm saying?
It's the new fall fashion.
Yeah.
So, and we didn't have Amazon Prime then.
Yeah.
So there was no Amazon Prime. Like you couldn't get them at Walmart. Like you don't. Yeah. There was no medical supply open, anything like that. And then it just became the staying out. It became the disrespectful, calling me out of my name. It became.
Did it escalate rapidly, or was it like just slowly but surely?
It was slowly but surely. It was here and there. He was like, "I'm sorry. I won't ever do that again."
So I
drink too much.
Yep.
I'm gonna, back off my drinking. This, that, and the other.
Okay, this is kind of what I wanted to get at, right? Because earlier you'd asked me before we started recording, like, hey, what's the goal, right? And I think education is so paramount. Like, there are women, there are victims that are in these situations where they're in the wax and wane period, right? And so, if someone has dealt with a wax portion, right, and it's about to wane, can you kind of talk to our visionaries, our victims that may be dealing with this, and just to say, hey, sis,
it doesn't get better.
Here's what you should look out for.
Yeah, it doesn't. The biggest thing is that it doesn't get better. Each time it is going to get worse. Whether it is whether it is another physical touch, the next time it may be emotional, it may be verbal.
But he loves me.
Right.
and he's going to change.
And he doesn't mean to.
He doesn't mean to.
But that's not your baggage to carry.
He just was drink. He just had too much to drink that night.
Mm-hmm. And he's going to continue to have more.
No, he's going to change.
No, he's not. He's not. Unless he gets clinical help, it's not going to change.
But we have kids together.
And so you want your kids to
Have their dad.
have their dad.
I don't want my kids to grow up without their father.
But the impact, so you want a negative influence as opposed to no influence at all. And you want to expose your children to that. You want possibly for state officials to get involved in it, or because a child is going to go 50-50 one way or the other. They're either going to go the total opposite way of what they've seen, or they're going to go in the direction of what they've seen.
You have lived an interesting life, and said I've known you for a couple hours now.
Not even hours.
Right.
Well, but these are the things, and again, the Vision Lab podcast is not about being disrespectful, but these are the things that women are saying. Like, I don't want to, like, I want my child's father to be a part of their lives. He's gonna change. Oh, it was just, he just had too much drink that night, right? Like, that's not who he is. Oh, he really loves me. Like these are the things that you probably, I'm guessing, that you thought of.
Here's a bigger kicker, is that he needs time. Nobody can change overnight. That was my biggest thing. For someone who has experienced this and has been living this type of lifestyle and has been drinking this way and had parents, another male figure in their life that raised them that drank this way, and it was okay and that it was enabled, it's going to take them time to change.
And what you're saying, because I'm about to challenge you on this too.
I'm ready.
But what you're saying is that they're not going to change.
No. Not... There's not anything that you can do for that person to change. That change has to come from that individual, and there's got to be outside influence, and that individual has to choose to go do that on their own, and they're not going to do it with you being there.
So here we go. We grew up in the church, okay? We grew up going to the same church, and you know that there's people that are going to say, well, once he finds Christ, once he finds the Lord, once he finds the church, once he gets involved, these things will change.
Without you being there.
There it is.
So you're
without
giving...
you being there. Because let me just put a pin in that real quick, because the incident that I gave you for my first marriage, we went to the church, our church that we grew up in. I won't name the pastor, the reverend that counseled us. And you know what he told me? That I was too masculine and that I needed to be nicer to my husband. I didn't step foot in a church for 5 years after that.
All that makes sense. And I know, especially that era, like it is not even foreign to me that would have been said. But to that young lady that's 25 years old, that's believing that, okay, once he finds God, once he changes, he'll stop drinking, he'll be an active father.
Let him do that on his own, sis.
So you're telling her, and there's your camera right there.
Yeah.
You're telling her that it's okay to leave.
That's the only way it's going to happen, because you cannot be collateral damage. There's nothing that is said that you have to put yourself in the way of the bullet. There's nothing that says that. You cannot save somebody else. They have to save themselves. So that means that you have to save yourself. And you have to have a reason to do it, whether it's for you, whether it's so that your parents, your sisters, your friends, your coworkers are not watching or seeing you in a casket, or not getting a call at 3 o'clock in the morning that you're in a trauma center because you've almost been beaten to death, or that you're missing. You have to choose you, and it's okay to choose you. You have to choose you. You have to.
Choose you. I love that, Mo. Choose you.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
And the thing is that a lot of times you're not going to be able to choose you because of you. Sometimes you have to find the courage to choose you outside of yourself. So when I left the first time, I found the courage to choose me because I chose my children first.
Okay. And then you found yourself in a repeated cycle, which is very, very common. Mm-hmm. So now we're with abuser number 4, right?
Yeah.
You're going through this, and then I'm curious. So we've given the advice, the coaching, the recommendation.
Well, it was number 3 because the one before.
You were molested.
Well, yeah.
Then raped.
Yeah. So
then,
4.
Number 4, right? Yeah. So now you've given your advice to our visionaries, but here you are in this situation. Like, where's your mindset? Obviously, this is a Vision Live podcast. We're all about growth mindset. So, like, where's your mindset?
So my mindset was, I was trying to figure out, is this really me? Is it really the alcohol? Because I was drinking, as an adult, drinking. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start working on me. Okay. So I decided to abstain from alcohol. I decided to start working on my health, going to the gym, working out. The abuse got worse as I did that.
Because you were trying to better yourself?
Mm-hmm. And because
you think you're better than me.
Exactly.
Misery
the abuser
loves company.
felt like, right, the abuser was like, oh, well, you're better than me. Oh, well, so now you can't drink. And would, like, intentionally bring things home for me to drink, would intentionally bring things, have parties and be like, oh, yeah, well, she doesn't drink anymore or whatever, blah, 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 and, like, make a joke out of it or whatever, which was cool for me because I'd already decided what I was going to do. But once I stopped, the smoke and mirrors pretty much, they just dropped. And I was just like, how in the fuck did I get here? Like, again.
Again, yeah.
And so I was like, I've got to go get counseling. I had gotten pregnant, and I was just like, I had no intention of getting pregnant. It was a totally unplanned pregnancy. And I was like, something has got to change. I've got to get something figured out here. And so I started counseling. That increased the physical abuse, the emotional abuse.
While you were pregnant?
While towards the end of my pregnancy.
He was physical. He
headbutted me.
Oh.
Yeah. And I did headbutt him back. But
who's got the harder head?
But
not making light, but kind of making
yeah,
light.
like, yeah. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not. And I remember that child was maybe a few weeks old, and his mom came by to see the baby.
Huh?
And I told
she's saying while
I was pregnant,
the child she gave birth to,
yeah,
his mom came by a couple weeks post delivery.
Yeah. Postpartum.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, sorry.
I got you.
Sorry.
What?
You're good.
Came by, and I remember telling her, I can't do this. I can't stay with your son. And she told me that she understood. And he told me that when I told him that I wanted to, I think we could just co-parent and just kind of do this thing. And he told me, he said, you won't go anywhere with my child without me.
Another threat on your life?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know how to pick them, Sid?
I do. Well, I did.
Right, there it is. There it is.
I did. And, fast forward some years, and still the whole cycle of abuse, and things had really, and I hate to use this word, calm down, but it was literally the calm before the storm. And that's why I said earlier, you never know what they're going to do, because I never thought that he would hurt me in the way that he hurt me. That was the last straw that ended everything.
What was the last straw?
He choked me, beat me because I found out that he was cheating. And he got upset with me because it wasn't my business.
Of course not.
And then he told me that she was a better woman than I was. And that sent me through the roof. And I was like, you know what?
That's all I needed to hear. I'm out.
I was like,
No, she threw them hands first.
I did.
Of course she did. Yeah, of course she did. As soon as she said send me to the roof, I was like, well, she got her money's worth on the way out.
I was like, okay, bet. And I was like, all the shit I've been through with you, all the shit that I've supported you through, unemployment, job injuries, carrying the entire financial load, all of those things that I've been through with you. And this what we doing? Okay. And unfortunately this time children were involved.
What does that mean?
So that means that my 16-year-old at the time, I can't remember whether, I don't remember much of this incident, and it lasted about, and it wasn't an incident, it was an attack. It lasted about 35, 40 minutes.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it was choking,
yeah.
it was beating, I went unconscious.
But your oldest was there to...
He was there for he came in on the beginning part of it, and they began to struggle. And then I came back jumped on him to get off of my son. And then it was there's just a lot that I don't remember. My son can tell it from start to finish.
Yeah.
But my son had to make a decision to leave and go get help, because when I went for my phone, he broke my phone and literally ripped. I've never seen the wires on the inside of a phone, but he slammed it on the floor until it broke, and he pulled it apart. Excuse me. When he realized I was trying to call 911, and when my son left, that's when he hit me so hard. I flew into the marble partition in between the shower in the bathtub because I was trying to get to my firearm in the closet. We were actually both going towards the closet.
Oh, wow.
And I already knew what he was going for because he knew where I kept mine.
But your son left?
He had to make a decision because he didn't have a phone. He didn't have a phone.
That's all I knew to do. That's all I knew to do at the time.
So he's 16. He's 16 years old.
No, I get it.
And he knows that if he doesn't get any type of help,
nobody's gonna make it out of here.
Nobody's gonna make it out of there. So that is one of the hardest decisions and bravest decisions he made, because he didn't know if I was going to be breathing when he got back.
Exactly. But
he knew that he had to do something different than what was happening.
Because he couldn't overpower him.
We couldn't keep going the way that we were going. There's just no way, because it went from the kitchen all the way to the master bedroom in an almost 33,000 square foot, 3,300 square foot house. And yeah, the last straw was I hit him. And then he hit me so hard in the back of my head that I flew into the tile partition face forward. And I literally heard the bones in my face.
You could hear it.
Crack.
Oh.
And I remember looking, I didn't feel any pain, but I remember looking down, and then there was just like blood just gushing. And I just started screaming, and I was just like, "You're fucking crazy." And I turned around and looked at him, and he said, "Oh my God, oh my God," and like started reaching his arms out for. I was like, "Get away from me! You're absolutely insane." And so at that time, I don't even know how I got from around him, and I start running out towards the door, and he tries to stop me, and I still get out the door. I get outside. There's my son outside on the phone. The neighbors heard the commotion, so they had come over. They had firearms with them. I told them not to go in the house, And I was like, and I asked my son, I was like, who are you on the phone with? He's like, Mom, this stops now. He's like, that's it. It's over. It's done. And then he comes out the house and he's yelling and he's threatening my son. He's threatening me. Oh, this is what y'all want to do. He's threatening the neighbors, whatever. And I'm just telling neighbors just to go because I didn't want.
Because you see all those stories in the news of people trying to intervene.
I didn't want anybody else like involved. And so I go around the back of the house to get in my truck because I'm thinking at this time I'm just going to my dad's house. There's no logical thought process, right? There's no logical.
You're in survival mode.
There's no logical thought process, and I heard the sirens. I heard everything. I'm still not in a good conscious mode. I'm still gushing blood, bleeding, and I can't think like where my keys are or anything. And an officer comes around the back, and he shines his light up on my face, and he said, "Ma'am, what are you doing?" I said, "Look, I'm just trying to get to my dad's house," and he said, "Ma'am." He said, "I'm sorry, but you're not going anywhere." And I remember just breaking down crying, and I was like, "But I didn't do anything." He said, "We know you didn't." He said, "But I need you to come sit down on the curb and have a conversation with us." And even at that point in time, it took me probably about 5 or 10 minutes to even start to begin to tell them.
What happened?
And my son is just yelling, "Tell them what happened. Tell them what happened. Never mind, I'll tell them what happened." You know, and they can see the visible marks on my neck from where I've been choked, the piece of the skin, the nail marks, all the stuff that's hanging off my neck. You know, they see it all. Clothes ripped, all of that, you know. And, of course, the ambulance is there. Finished talking, and the medical team was like, "We really need to get her to a trauma center." And you know, some of his family showed up. They arrested him, put him in the car.
What did his family say? I'm curious.
They said that they would take care of the boys. They would take care of the dogs. Don't worry about anything. And of course, my son was like, "I'm not leaving my mom here. I'm gone." And like he wasn't supposed to ride in the back, but he almost fought the paramedics. He's like, "I'm not leaving my mom back there by herself." So, my dad didn't answer the call that night from the police officers because he's my emergency contact. But Jan, my bonus mom, she answered it, and she was at the trauma center before anybody got there.
She's a nurse too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And now it's all out there. Mm-hmm. You know, 20 years of kind of hiding it, so to speak, is all out there. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, is there a sense of relief that now, because the first thing we talked about was empathy. Mm-hmm. It's out there. It's clear. Mm-hmm. Is there any sense of empathy to you as a female, like going through what you've been going through, like nose is busted up, blood's on the shirt?
Absolutely it was, and absolutely it's been. You know, I'm a traumatic brain injury survivor, so I do
from that incident.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a detaching retina from the extent of the injuries. And the crazy thing about it is that when I went to this retina specialist, he told me that it had come, he said, "I can see where the acute injury is, but there was past injury," he said, "from forceful trauma." He said, "Are you an abuse victim?"
He could tell. He could tell what the first time. He could
tell, exactly, because nobody my age at 39, 40 years old should have.
Oh, this is recent.
Yeah, this was 2019.
Sheesh.
There's a lot of questions. The first one is just as a parent, and not to say this is your fault. Like that's not what I'm getting at. But like knowing that your oldest was there, like how do you feel about that? That he had to impart.
I had to. That when we talk about regrets, that's one of my biggest regrets. The crazy thing is that I had gotten so good at keeping them out of it.
Exactly. That's where I was going with
that. All the kids, including my oldest, because my oldest was stationed in California. He's in the Air Force.
Oh, okay. So this, okay, I'm with you.
He felt a sense of guilt because he wasn't there.
Yeah.
And he felt like if he had been there, it wouldn't have happened. It really changed the trajectory for my 16-year-old at the time, because the world was like blown up. Yeah.
So you're a mother of 3 boys. Two boys and a daughter. Excuse me. So how do you combat or ensure that your boys don't take that on because they've seen it?
So my oldest saw it with my ex-husband. The second one, he was so young that he really didn't know what was going on. So when he saw this incident, right?
He was 16 at the time, though.
He was floored because he hadn't seen it. They had seen us argue, but they had never seen any physicality at all.
So now, as a mother of 2 grown, almost grown,
we have
one's grown, the other one,
21.
He's 21.
About to be 22.
Second one's 21.
About to be 22.
God dang.
He'll be 22.
But how do you impart upon them like, yo, this ain't how you treat a lady?
So we always had those conversations. We still have those conversations. I give them open dialogue to have conversations with me about how they feel, what they feel, how they see themselves, and how they want to show up in the world as people first and as men second. My biggest thing for my kids always has been, you need to make the world a better place. Wherever you are, make it better than it was when you got there, right? And they have mentors. And so, so we have those open dialogues, and they themselves will say, that how they move in their relationships because of that. And because they have seen the damage that it's done, and they understand that's not, it's not who they want to be.
Sis, I've known you for a very, very long time, and a lot of this is even new to me.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to say is thank you. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for your truth. Thank you for going back to relive some of the worst moments of your life. I know that that's not easy, and so we are very appreciative and very, very grateful for that. As we get ready to land the plane, I want to give you the opportunity to look into your camera, whatever is on your spirit, whatever's in your heart, to share to women or men that have dealt with domestic violence as a victim. Please impart whatever wisdom you want to give to them, like whatever you want to give them.
So I think the biggest thing is to know that you're worthy. You're worthy of a life without pain. You're worthy of a life where you can be free, where you can breathe, where you can dream. you're worthy of those things, and that there is someone out there that is ready to listen to you and to work with you and to help you. You've also got to get help. You've got to learn how to change that dialogue, and it's not easy. I went through 3 years of intensive therapy with specifically trained trauma therapists, psychotherapists, to change my mindset and how I looked and how I moved through life. I am not a victim. I'm a thriver now. When I left, I was a survivor. As I did the work, I'm now a thriver. If you ask me if I saw myself here when I took that first step, I didn't. But I'm here to be a representation to let you know that there is life and it's beautiful after choosing you.
I want to commend you. I want to tip my hat to you. On behalf of the Vision Lab podcast, the last 20 years, even prior to that, right? Like you've dealt with a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful. I'm happy, especially for who you are to me. We for people that don't know, like we communicate on some, on some fashion
every
day. But in all seriousness, like I want to give you your flowers. I want you to know I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for standing. I'm proud of you for still being here. Mm-hmm. I'm proud of you for not giving the fuck up. I really am. For wherever, that falls on your spectrum, it is what it is. I'm cool with that. But just know that there's one person in this world that exists, right? Like that's proud of you for what you've endured. And I think that is a true testament to who you are. You're a fighter. And I praise you for that. I'm humbled that you even graced us with your presence. I'm terribly sorry that you had to deal with the things that you had to have had to deal with, but I'm grateful that you dealt with it so that it can be an impartation on other people, right? Like your one experience or multiple experiences, but your one life can affect multiple lives. Mm-hmm. And so I hate that you went through it, but I'm glad that you went through it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer that we go now. Granted, there's a lot that got us to this point, that got me to this point, but I'm a firm believer that the things that we go through are to help and to pay it forward for other people. One big thing that was affected with me was my brain function and my speech, and I know that I told God that, you give me my voice back, I will use my voice to do your work and to go back into the community that helped save me to help others. So in 2023, I was chosen to be a model for Choose Courage Foundation. So choosecourage.org. It was started by a photographer who actually was requested to do a survivor photo shoot.
Love it.
And when she saw how powerful it was, she started this foundation with some other amazing individuals. And they decided their 9-year birthday is on October 14th this year. They're a 501(c)(3) foundation. C.
501(c). Yep. That's all good.
Foundation. And what they do is they want to take the shame and the stigma off of domestic violence.
Yes.
They also have a community initiative with teens that they work in the community, and they teach teens about healthy relationships and different. And so they do a teen campaign every year. I've been blessed with the opportunity. I've worked with them for the past 2 years doing this teen campaign, and the things that these teens, we've got some amazing thought leaders coming up in these next generations. But we teach them about and get to hear their experiences about dating, what it looks like. What are green flags? What are red flags? Because the shit is so different from
Yeah.
when we were dating.
Yes,
You've got
yes.
social media.
Yes.
You have
Whole
all
animal.
types of ways to be able to affect someone.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look the same way it did for us.
100%. Thank you. Yes.
And so I go and I spend a day with these teens, and they have like a whole photo shoot and everything like that. So they don't talk about anybody's stories. That's done. It's what has happened after.
Okay.
What are you doing after? How are you thriving after?
It's the recovery.
It's the recovery process. Yeah.
What
It's
happened. What are we going to do about it?
Exactly. How do we move forward? Because you still need to, and that's why I said in my message, I could not see, when I took that first step, I couldn't see me sitting here, married, thriving, my children thriving, married to an incredible man who sees and loves every part of me and is here to support me in all of those different ways, and still even my imperfections, because I thought I was unlovable after my injuries.
Understandable.
Because I'm like, I'm not as smart. I lost a quarter of my vocabulary. I had to learn how to speak again. There are certain things in nursing I wouldn't be able to do again because of how my brain works differently now. But having that photo shoot was so empowering to be able to show the thriving side, past the survival stage into the thriving stage. And so I've been working with them for 2 years.
One more time, I want to give you the opportunity to shout out the organization.
So it's Choose Courage Foundation, and you can find them choosecourage.org. They are on Instagram, Facebook, and they do some amazing things out in the community as far as giving the voice to survivors. And sometimes those survivors are the families because the victims did not make it.
I want to say this, and hopefully I'm not overstepping my bounds with my partner, but Choose Courage. You have an open invitation to the podcast.
Absolutely.
We'd love to partner with you. I'm both of us are girl dads. I've got 2 daughters. Mo's got 1. I've got a sister, a mother. Like, I'm not about that life. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so, I'm just tremendously grateful for your transparency, your honesty, your willingness to open yourself up and talk about some deep, dark things that transpired in your life. And so thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for being so gracious with your truth. But we have to land the plane
Indeed.
correctly.
Yes.
Here in the Vision Lab podcast, what we do every single episode.
Well, before I do land the plane,
Yes, sir.
the National Domestic Violence Hotline for
Yes.
anybody who is looking for a place to start their exit, if you will. The phone number is 1-800-799-7233. That's the phone code for the word safe. Yeah. Again, it's 1-800-799-7233. That's the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Call it. There are trained counselors and professionals that can help you start the process of removing yourself from that type of situation.
And I'd also like to say, too, if you are someone who is around someone that you know, you can call that line as well.
Yes.
Please do not try to help these individuals yourself. Doesn't mean don't help, but please get someone who is trained to be able to do this and to work through this, because they deal with it all the time. There's also Safe Haven of Tarrant County. There's a Safe Place. There are a lot of different organizations that hotline can also help you with. And I think their website is www.hotline.org.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Adam will post that hotline website on down
video.
below. And the last thing I want to say, just as a man, it's never okay to put your hands on a female. I don't care what situation, I don't care what time that we're in. Walk away. If you view yourself as weak, walk away. It's okay. It's significantly better for you to be viewed as weak
versus being locked
up or traumatizing
that type of trauma,
or traumatizing so many people because it's not just you.
It's a ripple effect because my family suffered PTSD. From that whole
and they
entire
weren't
situation.
even physically, harmed.
Yeah.
Like, bruh, like I need y'all to hear this when I tell you, it is okay to walk away. Take a beat. Take 5. Walk away. Go get a walk in, go run, do whatever you got to do. Like, whatever the situation is. And we know that there are often times where you're provoked and pushed to the end, but you don't have to put your hands on a woman. I don't stand for it. I've got a mother, a sister, 2 daughters. Like, I'm not for that by any stretch. Mo, same way.
And I'd like to say something else too, if you don't
mind. Sure, yeah.
As men, hold your brothers accountable. Hold your brothers accountable.
It's not cool, man.
I see a lot of, well, that didn't have anything to do with me. That boy's wild. You know what I'm saying? He be tripping. Hold each other accountable.
What does that look like to you?
That looks like, hey man, what are you doing? That's not right. Just like you're sitting here having this conversation with the Vision Lab podcast community, make sure that you're having those conversations one-on-one. Make sure you're not dismissing behaviors. I'm not saying that it's yours to own, right? But have a conversation. If this is someone who's in your community, if this is someone that you're around, say something.
I can't agree with you anymore. Like, it's just not cool. Like, we know we're 99.9% of the time we're the dominant figure, like physically, and even if she can throw hands, that's not the point. And I understand what it's like to be upset. I understand what it's like to have the drink, in your system. But you gotta understand your higher purpose, right? You gotta have a moral code. Like, when you mentally make a line of demarcation that I will never put my hands on a female ever. I will push you away to stop this situation, but that's my extent. If that doesn't work, I'm out, and I think it's important for men to understand, like, just be very cognizant of the situations that you're in. If you understand the escalation that's being, that's raising, it's time to make a move. It's time to get out. You can live another day and talk about it later on once you walk away. But the moment that you put your hands on a female, the ripple effect is very, very, it's everlasting. And so, again, Cydra, thank you for jumping to the lab. But before we go,
we're gonna land the plane.
We gotta land the plane.
Yeah,
Uncle Mo.
There is a round table, imaginary. It's you, and there are 5 other seats at the table. You get to pick whoever you want, short of whatever religious entity you believe in. Outside of that, who are your 5 people at the table, dead or alive?
You got 5 people at the table. Who are you sitting with?
At the table that
drinking.
We're all drinking.
Since you, by the way, I'd love to see you try to drink me on the table.
Yeah, but see, I'm healed now, so
okay,
I don't do
good.
that.
You missed out. You missed your shot.
She wouldn't have lasted.
No, I wouldn't have. Unhealed, would not have lost it. But 5 people. I would have to say they all are the women in my family that I never met.
Who are they?
Ooh.
And I say this because
that is a new one. I like this.
I come from, and a lot of us don't know it because a lot of these earlier generations, especially in our culture, don't talk about trauma and don't talk about those things that have happened that translate into generational trauma and generational ties and generational curses, things like that. That's a whole nother.
You're talking about soul ties?
I'm talking about soul ties. I'm talking about generational curses. I'm talking about all types of things. And like
Stuff
I said,
that our older generations is like, we're just not going to talk about.
that we're not going to talk
that type of
about,
stuff.
that is passed on, that even gets passed on genetically.
Yep.
Okay.
Because it's not properly processed.
And this is a whole nother stage and soapbox I'm not going to go into. But I learned this in several different parts of my healing journey and different modalities of healing that I went through. But there were certain things that I learned that were carried on and passed on to me through generations and genetics that I
had nothing to do with.
had nothing to do with. That I had absolutely.
You hit the jackpot.
I had nothing to do with, but I hold it and I carry it because my mother held it and carried it and birthed me. So, to answer the question, so my mother's mother,
Your grandmother.
so my grandmother, my great grandmother,
That's two.
on my mother's side, and then my dad's mother, so my maternal grandmother, and my maternal great grandmother.
That's 4.
Okay.
Okay, and her mother,
And your
my great great.
on your maternal side.
On
Oh, no,
my
on your
paternal side.
paternal side.
So I would love to have a round table with those women
That's
and
pretty good.
understand their stories.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Cydra, thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely.
You're welcome. Thank you guys so much.
For any visionary that's dealing with this right now, if they were to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to get in contact with you via social media?
It would be on Instagram
Spell it.
at simply SYM as in Mary, P as in Paul, LY _ CYD.
Simply Sid.
underscore
Simply
skid.
Sid.
Sid.
Understood.
Love
Okay.
it. Love it.
Simply Sid.
In case you didn't know, we have a magical time machine here in the Vision Lab. What's your new last name?
Branch.
What advice would Sydney Branch, Cydra Branch be giving you? What advice would Cydra Branch be giving you from 5 years ago?
Say that again?
What advice would you be giving yourself from 5 years ago?
From 5 years ago, keep the faith, keep working, keep digging, keep grinding. There's beauty on the other side.
Keep the faith, keep grinding, keep digging. There's beauty on the other side.
Yep.
Love it. Now we're gonna fast forward the clock 5 years from now. Okay, so you're almost 50. What advice would Cydra be giving her older version? What advice would that older version of Cydra be giving you today?
Give yourself your flowers. Give yourself grace and applause for where you've gone, where you've been, where you're gone, and where you're going. And to be in the moment and to be present in those moments and to cherish those moments. Just get everything that you possibly can out of each of those moments.
And love that husband.
To life. Yeah.
Final question of the podcast.
Okay.
Cydra Branch. If you were a book, what would be the title of your book? This is the part that I love about our show, Mo. When somebody actually has to think.
Unstoppable grace.
Unstoppable grace.
Yep.
I love that. Mm-hmm. I absolutely. That's one of the best titles in 5.5 years.
Really
That's
good.
That's one of the best titles.
We thought we had it when she said something earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Cydra, sis, big sis, thank you.
Thank you.
We hope, number one, that this is a part of your healing journey.
Absolutely.
The ability to kind of talk about some things that are troubling, that are challenging, that are hurtful, but that's required to move forward. And so we hope that that's part of your healing journey. Number two, we hope that visionaries, for anybody that's listening, specifically women, that this has been like just incredible, and there's a ton of nuggets of wisdom that Cydra has dropped, these gems that you dropped. So thank you for that. Visionaries, remember, each one of our guests are dropping nuggets of wisdom on the trail of life. Ultimately, it's up to you to pick them up.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ryan Mosley. He is Ryan Cuffey. Thank you again to our guest, Ms. Cydra Branch, and we will see you guys next time on another great episode of the Vision Lab podcast.
Blessings.